Hey, what's going on, you guys? Hey, welcome back to another episode with iTrack. Big shout out to all the iTrack fam tapping in yet again like you always do. And if this is your first time here, what we like to do is take a look at the most interesting and creepy TikToks and kind of evaluate for ourselves whether these are fact or fake. If you haven't already, go ahead and smash that like button for me, smash that subscribe button, and join the iTrack fam. Keep up to date with the latest, greatest, creepy and interesting videos all across the internet. Now let's just jump straight into it.
Science was purposefully created to hide God. Even further, science is Gnosticism, and I will prove it. And this great scientific debate goes back to the 1st century, earlier, and even the medieval ages. But let's start here in the 1st century. Timothy, keep that which is committed to thy trust, avoiding profane and the vain babblings and oppositions of science, falsely so called. Now this chapter is about following the righteousness in the words of Jesus Christ and his teachers, and not falling into the vain babblings and opposition that is called science, but falsely called science. The reason for this is there is a real science that you can prove with the scientific method, but what they have is a false religion science, which is the Greek word gnosis, which is knowledge and intelligence and understanding, but remember he said falsely so-called science. Now let's look at the word gnosis, which traces back to the Greek 1st century Hellenistic religions about the sun, the moon, the stars. Go figure, huh? And this is also where we get the word Gnosticism from, which is straight up religious ideas. And today, this man-made religion is mainstream, because all this science today is theory, Big Bang, evolution, the theory of gravity, where it should be a theory of relativity and density, which isn't really a theory. Anyways, this is Martin Luther. Google hides exact quotes on this topic, but he called Copernicus and his astronomy model all the Antichrist spirit. And after this video, you now know it's a Hellenistic religion. And obviously, he was against Rome. Today's science is a cult of alchemy, divination, and sorcery.
As I said, was carved into the bedrock. The type of stone is volcanic. It's not granite. It could actually be porphyry, which is actually harder than granite, possibly 8 out of 10 in the hardness scale. So this would not have been something that the Inca could have done. Quite finely finished and just very enigmatic. Some people think that this is an ancient energy portal. It's definitely a place where you can do meditation, as one of the film crew is doing here. And as I said, it's quite unique. Similar to what we see in Egypt, but in terms of Peru and Bolivia, as far as I can tell, at least in my experience, it's one of a kind. The acoustic properties of the false door are really quite interesting.
Ground beef, what's in it? I bet you don't know this. The government allows up to 18% of defects, they call it, in ground meat. That includes roaches, flies, larvae, insects of any kind, maggots, rats, mice, and probably the occasional finger or two. I doubt they're going to throw away a 300-pound batch of ground beef because somebody lost a tip of their finger in the grinder. I'm just saying. Sweep that under the rug and put that in sausage. This applies to ground turkeys, ground porks, ground chickens, and anything made in the sausage. Sausages, hot dogs, that's a whole other ball game. No pun intended.
I mean, unless you own the cow or know somebody that does, man, you don't know what you're eating.
Okay, how telepathy works and how you hear it. I'm about to tell you. You'll be thinking about somebody or something or a scenario or a conversation somebody had. You'll be thinking about it, and all of a sudden you'll hear a line. It's just a single line that you'll hear from that conversation or from their thoughts. You just hear a single line, and then all of a sudden you know exactly where it's from. Your brain doesn't come up with that kind of stuff by itself. It only happens when something from the outside comes in. The brain has to be initiated, has to be inspired. That kind of stuff just doesn't happen on its own. I think this happens for a lot of people. However, we just think it's inside chatter, inside brain chatter. We don't realize that we're pulling in stuff from other scenarios and people and things. I have been telepathic for years. It goes in and out whether I'm positive or negative. I think about somebody or something and I will pull in a line. It comes in as one line from the conversation, and all of a sudden I know exactly where that line came from and who said it. That's how I know it's telepathy and it's not my brain creating it, because I know our brains don't just create that stuff on their own. They don't. Yeah, so that's how you know if you're telepathic. That's one way. That's one way that I know. I know there's other ways probably that it happens and people hear it. But that's, for me, that's, at least I know I can stand behind that.
I think another major way that people know is a gut feeling. You know what I mean? That's the major verbiage that people use, right? I should have trusted my gut. Yeah, you should have.
They're called the Rill. They come up from underground different spots all over the world. There's a 1 to 1.5 foot tall one. That's the Rill Type 1.
The Type 1s are covered in red diamond shaped scales. Rill Type 1s are real dumb.
Little dragons, those are the Rill Type 1. These lizards have a unique biological property of their body. The lizards have what's called a proboscis. It's an ejectable brain and spinal column. The small ones they use to drone people, because the proboscis on young lizard Type 1s, they're small enough to go into an eye and not ruin the eye. This top cap thing on the top of their head comes out. They can do this once in their life. It pulls their spinal column along with it. The humans would have to be restrained or unconscious. The thing swiggles in through the eye. It does a spiral around the optic nerve all the way to a certain point, and it's driven there by taste. And they said once it gets there, it has the taste of butterscotch. It then starts what they call splitting the quill. The spinal cord stuff comes out of the spinal cord, and it's everything that the lizard is. The lizard's whole body is dead, and it can't go back in. It's one way. The juice that's in the spinal cord gets excreted out of the tip of this thing. They're parasitic cells. The parasitic cells go into the brain. The old person's consciousness is gone. The body is absolutely, totally dominated, and the lizard is smarter as a human. Over time, it'll develop a rash, it'll lose its hair.
And they're actually deficient. They're dumber than the original person.
And they mimic human behavior, and it knows that its life is dependent on it mimicking human behavior, so it does really well. Even with other animals, it's smart enough to instinctually mimic the animal's behavior. The drones of 100 years ago erased any existence of these real lizards from, like, Egyptian carvings on walls. They would smash them, or books that had anything in them about them, they would burn them.
So is that what the panda eyes are on those celebrities? I don't know. Let me know what you think.
How could space be real if I can touch the other side of this car, the same car that takes up the same amount of space on a road as a bus? But on a bus, you have one side to sit, another side to sit, and a whole walkway down the center. But on the road or a parking spot, it would take up the same amount of space as this car that I can do that in. Does not make sense.
Representative Anna Paulina Luna actually posted on Twitter X that she has a big announcement that everybody should pay attention to. Check this out. She said, I have an announcement next week that will impact the entire nation. Press conference date will be announced soon. Now, this was posted on the 3rd. Why does this matter? Representative Luna has been at the forefront of UFO and UAP disclosure, along with Representative Tim Burchett. And she allegedly was chosen to come out and make this announcement. And then in podcast, when she was asked, does this have to do with UFOs? She actually said, it's a bigger announcement, bigger than UFOs. What in the world do you think is bigger than UFOs or extraterrestrials or aliens in contact? If she says that there's an announcement coming out that's bigger than UFOs, what do you think that it could be? Let me know down in the comments below.
I ain't gonna lie to you. At that point, I don't think I want to know.
Congress, who sit on judiciary, armed services, and the oversight committees, are being denied access to this information. But if we do not have the clearance, who does? I think it's incredibly important to listen to the specific words that Gresh uses. You know, Gresh never said extraterrestrial or alien, he said interdimensional.
I would couch it as non-human intelligence, you know, NHI, like we like to say in our language.
Why do you say that? Why do you say NHI?
I don't want to necessarily denote origin. I don't think we have all the data to say, oh, they're coming from a certain location. Maybe they're coming from a different physical dimension as described in quantum mechanics.
Mr. Grush, why is it that you refer to the phenomenon as non-human intelligence? Why deviate from the basis of extraterrestrial life?
I think the phenomenon is very complex, and I like to leave an open mind analytically to specific origin.
When you say specific origin, can you elaborate on that for those that might?
If it's a traditional extraterrestrial origin or something else that we don't quite understand from either a biological or astrophysics perspective, I just like to keep an open mind on what it could be.
There's just certain things that I think that it's important that you guys listen to on that.
And Representative Luna, she said that Grush will not call it alien. He refers to it as interdimensional. He's very particular about that.
According to his widow, who I interviewed for 4 hours, and according to his son, who's a 747 pilot, who I interviewed for 3 hours, he was murdered by the CIA because he would not cooperate with fraud in the Apollo program.
That's correct. Can we slow that story down for people that don't know about Grisham? Can you explain what was supposed to happen? Because a lot of people that were supposed to go to the moon ended up dead in very mysterious circumstances. People that were supposed to testify about the death ended up dead in mysterious circumstances. So let's slow that down for my listeners in case this is the first time they've ever even considered that the moon landing didn't happen.
Yeah. So basically, Gus Grissom was the most beloved astronaut because he had an accident where his space capsule sank to the bottom of the ocean, and he confessed at the press conference he had all of these rolls of nickels in his pocket to give to his son, to give to his schoolmates, to say this nickel has been in outer space. And when he started sinking with that extra weight, he said, maybe that wasn't such a brilliant idea. The media laughed. And then someone asked him, were you afraid? And he said, of course I was afraid. And everyone said, this guy's real. They said he's going to be the first man to walk on the moon. He was preparing congressional reports and giving them to senators that were taken from his home by the CIA before they even informed his widow that he was dead. On January 26, 1967, he came home and told his wife the following, who told me, "Hun, for some strange reason, the CIA is all over the launch pad today. I've never seen the CIA here in 3 years. Why did they show up today to inspect the equipment? The next day he's dead from faulty equipment." Days earlier, he held a press conference without permission. And he took a bunch of reporters up to the top of the rocket where he affixed a lemon the size of a grapefruit to the top of the rocket, calling it publicly a piece of junk. In fact, seconds before he burned alive, murdered by the CIA, his widow's opinion, not mine, they couldn't even get a wired intercom to work between two buildings. He says, how are we going to go to the moon? He says they're not fixing anything because they knew they were going to fake it and hadn't told the astronauts yet. It was faked a year later. So here's the point. Our country was formed, right, not by the Constitution, by the Declaration of Independence against the tyranny of King George, right? Because he was an obstacle to the pursuit of life, liberty, and happiness. What's the first one? Life. The federal government is murdering their own people. Does anybody care?
Candace seems to be on the front line of a lot of these topics that a lot of people shy away from.
If the sun was actually sentient, scientists observed that plasma structures display intelligent characteristics like self-organization, reproduction, and interaction, key markers of life. This interestingly aligns with numerous ancient shamanistic traditions, which describe intelligent spiritual entities manifesting as luminous forms or energies resembling plasma. Similarly, numerous reports of orbs, angels, and fairies often describe them as radiant, plasma-like entities displaying purposeful and intelligent behavior. Even the sun has long been described in various Vedic and Hindu texts as an intelligent entity. Researcher Andrew Collins proposes that the Ark of the Covenant may have functioned as a plasma generator, serving as a medium for divine communication. Accounts suggest that individuals in proximity to the Ark frequently experienced effects akin to radiation sickness, which could be attributed to electromagnetic fields emitted by the Ark as it generated this plasma. Follow me for more hidden knowledge.
Why the ones who see through everything are the most dangerous. Most people live on autopilot, believing what they're told, trusting what they see, and following the script society hands them. But the ones who see through it all, the ones who question, observe, and decode the truth, they're the ones you should fear, because they don't fall for illusions. They see the real motives behind fake smiles. the hidden intentions behind kind words, and the unspoken power plays happening beneath the surface. They read people like open books while staying unreadable themselves. Here's the truth. When you can see through manipulation, deception, and social games, you become immune to them. No one can guilt trip you. No one can control you. No one can make you dance to their tune because you already know the game and you play it better. That's what makes these people dangerous. They don't react emotionally. They don't get tricked by words.
Another episode of They Never Knew That the Internet Was Going to Be This Powerful in 1969. Look at this photo. And look at the back of this one. Look, it's got the same curves, the same panels. Go have a look for yourself. There you have it.
Beyonce and Jay-Z allegedly have a surrogate farm and adoption center in India. The blind items have been out for a few years now, but I find this to be relevant because 100 women kept as slaves on a human egg farm in Georgia, forced into egg trafficking, were just found after they escaped. I'm gonna read 2 blind items that are allegedly about Beyonce and Jay-Z. This A-list music couple are making nearly 6 figures a day between their surrogate farm and adoption center. This next one reads, in the past I wrote about this permanent A-list couple and the surrogate factory they own. Despite the millions they have made from show business, they make much more money owning this factory. Now they have a new business. Women who don't want to carry their babies but still want to make money sell their uterus. The clients so far are very wealthy Europeans and Russians who are either too old to have babies or have some other fertility problem. Our permanent A-list couple charges 10 times what they do for surrogacy. However, the quote-unquote donor rarely makes more than $500 to $1,000 for the surgery, and there is no follow-up care after they are discharged from the hospital.
There's satellite video of those fires, all 3 of them starting at the same time. You ever seen it?
No.
It's super suspicious. Super suspicious.
There's satellite footage of all the 3 fires starting at the same time.
Simultaneously. Yeah. You want to see it?
Yeah.
You need to see it because it's so creepy. I think it was arson. I think somebody did it. Whether it was a schizophrenic person, a firebug. There's a lot of those people that are firebugs, man. There's people that are like actual arsonists. And when you get into the conditions that happened in the Santa Ana winds when California's dry, like you remember when it was.
Oh,
well,
yeah.
you were there in 2018 with that big crazy fire, right? Did you see any of that on the 405?
Yeah.
It was insane.
Looks like they did it. I didn't think they was really going to do it, to be honest with you. So if you go on Google Maps right now, this is what you're going to get. But if you go on Apple Maps, it's still the same. To be honest with you, I think eventually they're going to change it.
This is the only proof we have of parallel universes, and it's absolutely terrifying. In 1954, a physicist named Dr. Elon McBezos was working on a top-secret government project called Project Looking Glass. The goal? To create a device that could glimpse into parallel universes. The device was a massive, circular mirror made of an unknown metallic alloy. When activated, it didn't reflect the room. It showed a different version of it. At first, the images were harmless. A chair slightly out of place, a clock ticking backward. But then things got darker. One day, the mirror showed a version of Dr. McBezos himself, but he looked terrified, staring back with wide, panicked eyes. The reflection mouthed the words, "Don't trust them." Panicked, Dr. McBezos shut down the project and destroyed his notes. But the mirror was too valuable to destroy. It was locked away in a secret facility, never to be activated again. Decades later, in 2023, a group of urban explorers broke into the abandoned facility. They found the mirror, still intact. Curious, they activated it. At first, it showed their reflections, but then the images shifted. They saw themselves in a world where society had collapsed, where the sky was red, and where their doppelgangers were watching them with cold, emotionless stares. The last thing they heard before the mirror shattered was a voice from the other side. "We're coming."
Freemasons have always known about the serpent energy located at the base of the spinal cord, which causes spiritual power when it rises to the brain. This is why the 33rd degree Mason, one of the highest rank within Freemasonry, is attained when a Mason raises the serpent energy through the 33 vertebrae of the spinal cord by practicing celibacy. Freemasons know that when one becomes celibate, the serpent energy accumulates at the base of the spine. This forces it to rise through the spinal cord, causing mastery over the material plane as it unlocks latent spiritual abilities. This is why celibacy is considered to be one of the highest virtues in Freemasonry.
Earth is much bigger, much stranger. Earth is just a crater, a single isolated crater on an incomprehensibly massive planet. What we call Earth, the continents, the oceans, everything we know, exists within the walls of this enormous impact site. And beyond those walls, there are more craters, more Earths, more places like ours, cut off from each other, separated by vast, untraveled, and possibly untraversable distances. Think about it. That's why we're told we can't explore Antarctica freely. It's why every space mission feeds us the same curated images, the same rehearsed stories. Because space isn't what we think it is. What we see when we look up, the stars, the planets, the so-called infinite universe, could just be an artificial projection, a manufactured sky keeping us complacent, keeping us from asking what's really outside this crater. And that's the real question, isn't it? What's beyond? Why are we trapped here? Who or what built this system? And why is no one allowed to leave?
A year ago, when I said that I would stake my entire professional career on the fact that Brigitte Macron, the current First Lady of France, was born a man, there were many people, of course, who did not believe me because that just sounds crazy.
Holy mother of Jesus, she's a man.
But even those people, thanks to Emmanuel Macron's strongly worded letter, which he had his legal team put together and ask me not to publicize, are now starting to pay a little bit of attention. Take this comment from popular Canadian YouTuber and lawyer who goes by Viva Frey. He wrote this under the episode regarding that letter. "I was very skeptical at first that Brigitte was a man, but I've got to tell you, Macron's lawyers are really starting to convince me." Legally speaking, it was an implausibly stupid move what they did, okay? While refusing to just plainly state that Brigitte Macron, the current First Lady of France, was indeed born a woman. I'm a female. They used all sorts of tricky language to suggest that they could sue me for defamation over minor errors that I made in my reporting. Okay, essentially, they were not addressing the substance of the claim. Brigitte Macron was born a biological male, but instead attacking things like, you said in an earlier report that a picture from Brigitte's communion was recolorized. This is false. This reporting has caused Brigitte to have mental anguish. Okay. But as I said, their lawyers made a critical mistake because in order to prove defamation, you have to prove that somebody acted in reckless disregard for the truth, that they knew the truth and they made a decision not to publicize it. Instead, they wanted to just publicize lies, which is something that if you guys watch this show, you know that I do not do. I do not engage in it. Quite the opposite. So by sending me a legal letter, they unintentionally provided me with a direct line, a direct link to ask Brigitte Macron and Emmanuel Macron pointed questions. They can't pretend they didn't see our questions, okay? The majority of the questions that we asked them were simply yes or no. Those were the answers that we needed, with the promise that we gave them that if she answered the questions, we would fully report on the facts. So I want to show you some of these very simple 21 questions that we asked Brigitte Macron so that we can use our process to put an end to her mental anguish, okay? Like I said, these are pretty simple questions. If you are a person and you are going through mental anguish because people are talking about you being born a biological male, wouldn't you race to answer those questions?
I am a victim of a hate crime.
Yeah. Well, apparently they simply were not anguished enough to hire and pay an American legal firm in DC to send us a 100-page lettered threat, but they simply were not anguished enough or could not muster the energy to answer 21 basic questions to put an end to the scandal. We received no response from them because we knew that we would not receive a response from them because, well, they're lying. They are, in fact, lying to the public about Brigitte Macron's past identity.
Hey, there she goes, looking for skeletons in France's closet.
You really want to get your mind blown. Type up on Google the words pale blue dot. And what you're going to see is this black, inky blackness. And right in the middle, about maybe 2 pixels large, a little blue fuzzy dot. What that dot is when we sent out the Voyager spacecraft on one of its last commands, we told it, turn around and take a picture of home, of Earth. Everything you have ever known, you've ever learned, everything you ever loved, everything you ever feared, every person that ever lived in history, every person that ever died, ever, is all on that tiny little blue dot hurtling through the vacuum and inky blackness of space. That's uncomfortable for some people to think about. And then when you think about the size of the universe, modern, right now, most physicists and cosmologists agree that the visible horizon, meaning as far as we can see in any direction, from one end to the end of the universe, is about 40 billion light years. Now, what's a light year? It's the time it takes and the distance traveled by a photon of light in 1 year. So how fast does light actually travel? 186,000 miles per second. That's 7.5 times around our planet in 1 second. Multiply that to a year, and now multiply that to 40 billion years, right? That is an enormous distance, and that's only 10% of the actual size of the universe as predicted now by some scientists, because most of the universe is too big, it's too far away, the light will never reach Earth. So now you're talking about a universe 100 billion light years. Human beings, this infinitesimally small speck right in the middle, right? As mind-blowing as that is, if you take one hydrogen atom, Avogadro's number, 6.23 or 6.28 times 10 to the negative 23 in size, that's roughly the same order of magnitude that atom is to us as we are to the universe. We sit right in the middle of the scale of the universe.
No key, no noise, no trace. The tool used by police forces and secret services to infiltrate without a sound. This is the decoder radio. It unlocks doors, bypasses locks, and defeats cylinders in just 16 seconds. No damage, no struggle, no broken locks. Silent, precise, invisible. Perfect for covert entries when time is critical and leaving no trace is essential. The lock stays intact, the door looks untouched, but you're already inside.
We now actually know what happens when we die. In some of the biggest news of the century, we've now got evidence suggesting that your life carries on after you die, and it gets a lot crazier than that. Make sure you share this video with your friends and family because you don't want to miss this. So an old woman was passing away, and as she died, they had her hooked up to a machine which was monitoring her brain. Now, what scientists got from these scans after she passed away was these photos, which don't look like much right now. But what these show is that a part of the brain, specifically the part of the brain that processes memories and experiences, was still active after death for around 8 minutes. And this is crazy because years ago I made a video saying about the 8 minutes after death and how your brain is still active. They did tests before on a man who died and found similar things, but nothing as concrete as this. As I say, from these scans, it showed that the brain was still active for around 8 minutes after this woman passed away. And specifically that she was processing memories, i.e. her life flashing before her eyes, the common term you've probably heard. So this suggests that when you pass away, your life does flash before your eyes, you get memory flashbacks and maybe relive parts of your life. But it also links into the theory I've spoken about before and many people have said. Think about when you have a dream. Sometimes dreams can feel really real and time's different, time dilation of course. Sometimes you'll have a dream, it feels like an hour, but you wake up and it's been about 2 minutes. Well, the same might be happening in this 8 minutes after death. Reliving memories, what feels like days, weeks, but is only in the 8 minutes. Or maybe even like a lucid dream, creating some sort of new reality. So what's to say you're not dead right now in that 8 minutes, and this is all just a figment of your imagination.
And he might be right about that, because every day you wake up is an absolutely new day.
Had an experience where you're thinking about somebody and the telephone rings and it's them? Have you ever had an experience where you phone somebody else and they say, we were just talking about you? It just leaps into your mind? Have you ever had an experience when you're in tune with your husband or wife and you think, you know, I'd like to go out to dinner at such and such a place tonight, and you call home and they will say, why don't we go out to dinner at such and such a place? These are all examples of this law of attraction. The law of attraction is considered by many to be one of the most important laws of human existence. In this, you will always attract to yourself, positive or negative, people and circumstances that harmonize with your dominant thoughts. that whatever you're thinking on a continuing basis, you're attracting into your life. You're drawing it into your life like a magnet. That's why it's so important that you keep your thoughts on what you want, keep your thoughts on what you desire.
Something galactically big is going on, and they're all aware of it, and all of this connects. It's actually insane. So in order to be able to understand all this, we need to go back. And we'll come right back to this, which just happened. She also performed at the Super Bowl. Right before the Olympics, we had these really crazy crop circles that had no other place but Stonehenge. Out of all places, I know it's crazy. And you remember the theme of the Olympics, right? But first, this discovery was also made 1 month before. All this stuff is starting to line up, right? And also that same exact month, the moon started showing the empty part and doing this crap. All in the same month. Then of course we had the Olympic show with the praying mantis right in front of the gray alien performing. Mantis here was known to the natives, and he always popped up before the grays came. Stay with me. And what was the shirt that Jim Carrey just popped out wearing? Yeah, the praying mantis. We've all heard the story of how it came to be, right? They almost look identical, huh?
Not her. Him. Hey, what's up, dude? You're an alien? All famous people are aliens.
So then the mantis makes an appearance right here when he says that all celebrities are aliens. And then we have SZA, who just performed at the Super Bowl. Then she releases her extended album. Don't give me the butterfly crap, it's a praying mantis. Because just like the native legend, the demonic meat suits are about to make an appearance. These are allegedly real. I'm telling you, it's gonna happen. And every single one of these people know about it. It's a screenplay. Nah, I'm just being stupid.
We have programmed the entire damn population to believe they're victims of their heredity. Something running in their family is genetic, like cancer. They say, well, how come they have the gene? They didn't get the cancer. And the answer is because they're not living a stressed life. Stress, and this is scientific reality, stress is responsible for over 90% of the health crisis on this planet. Genes are responsible for less than 1% of the disease on this planet. Less than 1% is connected to genetics. Children, when adopted into a family where there's cancer running in that family, the adopted child will get the same family cancer. But the point, the adopted child has totally different genetics. It was being adopted into a family where the programming of that child is what caused the cancer. There were no genes that were correlated between the family and the adopted child. And over 90% of cancer has no genetic linkage. Just all of a sudden, spontaneous cancer. It's like, no, it didn't come from genes. It came from disharmony. This is the science that I saw back in 1967 when I recognized that I can control the fate of genetically identical cells, not by changing the genes, but by changing the environment that the cells were in.
I definitely will have to agree with them on that. There's so many studies that show stress affects the body in so many negative ways. It's pretty wild.
The orbs are beings. It's a created intelligent being that watches us, that monitors all life on this planet. That's what they do.
So that would be like the little humanoid beings that you saw 18 years ago tomorrow. Those are what come out of
Yes. Yeah. And the
orbs.
cool thing is I have video of that. So nobody can tell me I'm not right about it. And everybody's wondering, how did you get into NASA? Why were you there? Why were you studying with them? What was their interest in me? Why did they need me? When I ask them, why do you need me? Why do you want me here? You've got rockets, you've got space shuttles, you've got satellites, you've got the space station, all the money and technology and telescopes in the world. And they're like, we know they like you and they communicate with you and they don't have nothing to do with us at all. And we'd like to know why, what it is they want, and why it is they're harassing their astronauts.
Harassing them?
Harassing them. So has any astronauts ever seen an orb? All of them.
No way.
All of them.
Really?
Yep.
So how do they see them? How do they appear to them?
They would appear outside the space shuttle, look in the windows at them, stand up over the shuttle bay or the space station, glowing. Sometimes there's a report of a half a dozen of them, 125 feet tall with wings, standing there smiling at them.
Wow.
So for 18 years I never talked about this, and this is the first time publicly.
So we're talking about things that come out of the orbs.
Angels, angelic beings, created beings. They're made of energy, but in a ball of light. But out of that ball of light comes a glowing being. Sometimes they're 6-7 feet tall or taller.
Or 125 feet tall.
Yep.
Iran launched a mothership.
It's real.
The Iranian drone mothership or warship or drone carrier, we're hearing it is real. February the 7th, 2025, Iran unveils a drone carrier warship in a threat to the United States. All the warnings that came out from Jeff Van Drew regarding the Iranian mothership, which we are now hearing a couple months later, actually I think almost just a little over a month later, they were accurate. There's true. Not for all the drones that were over the U.S., but there is, in fact, an Iranian mothership.
And from very high sources, very qualified sources, very responsible sources, I'm going to tell you the real deal. Iran launched a mothership.
Pentagon had also responded to this and immediately shut it down. Now, they didn't say that there was not actually this situation that was unfolding, as we're getting information coming out now a month later, today, February the 7th, 2025. But they did say that the drones that were in the United States, they believe that they were not a part of a foreign adversary.
Representative Jeff Van Drew, who is a Republican from New Jersey, was just on the air saying that Iran launched a mothership. Is there any truth to that?
There is not any truth to that. There is no Iranian ship off the coast of the United States, and there's no so-called mothership launching drones towards the United States.
Okay, so which is it? Did Iran launch a mothership, or is the story fake? If you know something I don't, let me know.
叫同学，
我在。
帮我拿瓶水。
好的。
搞快，搞快。搞快，我好渴，我要渴死了。
你的水需要我帮你打开吗？
不用，快快给我，快给我。
好的。
好，玩去吧。
Hey, so is that what the future looks like?
Voice of God weapon has already been created. The LRAD system, which is used to cast strong signals and crowd dispersion, can also be used to send messages long distances. I'll play a video of the CEO, Woody Norris, describing the Voice of God weapon and what it can do when it first came out.
So again, this idea of being able to put sound anywhere you want to is really starting to catch on. It also works for transmitting and communicating data. It also works 5 times better underwater. We've got the military had just deployed some of these into Iraq, where you can put fake troop movements a quarter of a mile away on a hillside. Or you can whisper in the ear of a supposed terrorist some biblical verse. I'm serious. And they have these infrared devices that can look at their countenance and see a fraction of a degree Kelvin in temperature shift from 100 yards away when they play this thing. And so another way of hopefully determining who's friendly and who isn't. We make a version of this which puts out 155 decibels. Pain is 120. So it allows you to go nearly a mile away and communicate with people, and there can be a public beach just off to the side and they don't even know it's turned on. We sell those to the military presently for about $70,000, and they're buying them as fast as we can make them.
You might want to remember this video in about a year or two. You might see some things, witness some things that are going to need some explanation, and that video might come in handy for you.
This is the picture that we've all been waiting for. Can I go into a little bit of detail? Because everyone's always worried about, like, where's the good evidence? Where's the good photographs? Right. It was 35 millimeter film footage. 2 witnesses, broad daylight, a UFO, points of reference with a military jet flying around, 5 or 6 prints. That's pretty solid evidence, right? Not a reflection, not a hoax. So long story short, this guy, Richard Greaves, who was one of the hotel cooks, worked in the kitchen with the photographers, with the 2 witnesses that took the photograph. And Richard Greaves came forward on print. When I contacted David Clark, I was like, hey, can you get me an interview with this guy? He kept putting it off, and then finally got a phone call, and he's like, I've just come out the pub, I'm ready to go. I was like, okay, grab a camera, roll it, let's record this. And he reveals that he knew the witnesses. He worked with them in the kitchen. He gave all the specifics. He provided their names. And then he said that 2 or 3 nights after they took that photograph, they were all on a cigarette break at the hotel, early evening, pissing rain. He said a car rolled up. There were 3 guys in it, a driver and 2 men in suits in the back. They roll up. They come out. They say cigarette break's over. They pull the two witnesses aside and they grill him. And you got to hear it directly from the horse's mouth. Richard Greaves said that when they were all, the people that were not involved with the incident were told to go back inside the hotel, which they did, but they looked through the window and they saw in the pissing rain, he said they were out there for 10 or 15 minutes in the pissing rain, and that these guys, they came back inside and they were white as a, he said, he literally goes, they came back inside, they were white as a fucking ghost. And which we all get a good laugh out of, but and then they started drinking heavily, and within a couple of weeks they vanished without a trace, and they've been gone ever since.
Well, you guys, hey, that's another one in the books. I appreciate each and every one of you guys for stopping by and watching another one with me. If you haven't already, go ahead and smash that like button for me. Smash that subscribe button to join the iTrack fam, and I will definitely catch you on the next one.